Hello, and welcome to the Amongst Romance podcast, your window to everything Italy from an outsider's perspective. Join us each week as we navigate the Italian way of life and all the adventures that come along with it. Today's episode is brought to you by another inspiration I got from TikTok. There are a lot of videos on TikTok right now about how to avoid scams, especially tourist scams, when you come to Italy. I thought this was something that we should cover because as you come into Italy, you're probably wanting to have the best experience. However, as with many tourist destinations, Italy is not a stranger to those who try to take advantage of tourists. So let's go over some of the most common tourist scams that you can find in Italy. Now, many of them are not specific just to Italy. You can probably find those scams all over the world. Some are a bit more localized. Just staying aware and knowing how to spot a scam can really save you a lot of frustration in the future. So let's talk about the common scams in Italy. Now, the number one way you might get scammed, or I would say probably not scammed but robbed, is by being pickpocketed. Pickpocketing is not something that's just common to Italy. It's something that exists in all the tourist destinations in the world. Pickpocketers usually hang out in very congested areas where there's lots of tourists. And when you think about it, if you come into a place, you're busy looking at the sights around you, you are distracted, and that makes you the perfect target for somebody trying to steal from you. The last time we went in Rome, we were by the Trevi Fountain. And again, Trevi Fountain area is very busy. This time it was a bit early evening, I would say. So we were passing through and there was a crowd gathered around the fountain. All of a sudden we heard someone yelling that somebody just stole their wallet. So again, you are in a busy touristy area being distracted. Somebody comes along and waits for the opportunity to get into your bag and steal your stuff. Now, there were police around, but, when you think of an area where there's lots of people and lots of activity, it's a bit hard to figure out who was the person who just happened to take this stuff out of your bag. They were yelling, "Oh my God, my wallet got stolen, my wallet got stolen." In that crowd of people, it's kind of hard to say this person did it. It's very frustrating because the police can't really do much other than tell you to file a police report. People who pickpocket are usually looking for money. So if your wallet gets stolen, make sure that you immediately block all your credit cards, your bank accounts. Those are the things that they will target the fastest. So the sooner you do it, the more chances you have of protecting the money in your bank accounts. I want to say that this only happens in touristy places, but unfortunately it doesn't. If you are using public transit in Rome or other big cities, always make sure you keep an eye on your belongings. Forgo the large, big purse or big backpack and have something small instead, something that you can keep close to you and you can have an eye on. I have a small fanny pack, goes across my chest, and I have it in front of me at all times. I know exactly where everything is, and it makes it a bit more difficult for someone to just come and grab it. If you're going to big touristy places, always make sure you have your belongings with you and don't leave them unattended because that's when they strike. Keep an eye for pickpocketers. They will most likely be in touristy places. There are a lot of tourists, lots of activity. That's when they are striking. So be careful in those areas in particular. Another tourist scam that's very common, I've seen this the most in Rome, although I think it happens in other big cities, is you have these vendors or people who are walking around and they try to give you a gift. This gift could be like a bracelet or a little trinket. Sometimes it's a rose. They'll come approach you and they'll be like, here. And then automatically you will extend your hand and they will just hand you something or put this bracelet around your wrist and be like, oh, hey, this is for you. This is your gift. And you're like, no, I don't want it. And they'd be like, no, it's fine. It's a gift for you. And, you kind of start being cautious. Eventually, this will lead to them asking you for money. I wouldn't call this a very obvious scam, but once you are in the first few minutes, you do realize it's a scam. Despite them saying, no, it's a free gift, it never is. This happened to us again when we were in Rome. We were having drinks in a fairly touristy area, just sitting there, people watching. And this gentleman came over to us, being really friendly, and he had these little figurines, elephant or something like that. So he was like, oh, here, I'd like to give you this gift. And I'm like, we don't want it. He's like, no, here, I give you my gift, asking you questions, like, so where you from? It's like a very unnecessary, because we didn't initiate it. We were just minding our business. Why would you all of a sudden come and start asking us questions? So that's sign number one, that they're looking for something. He kept trying to give us this trinket, and we were saying, no, we don't want it. So he starts telling you the story about his family or something like that, just something to make you a bit more interactive, a bit more curious, something that will kind of try to take you in and make you a bit more guilty about not giving him the money. So eventually it comes, the ask for money, give me like €5 or whatever. You can give them money if you want, but then you're perpetuating the scam, right? So we just said, no, we don't want it. Why should you do that? They might get angry. That's why it's good to just walk away. We couldn't walk away because we were sitting down and he approached us. But basically what happened was we just said no. So we didn't want to touch this thing. We did not want to interact with him. He could see that it wasn't going to work on us. So he picked up this little trinket and he walked away. He was very angry, but we're not going to give him money. For what? You have to be very cautious if somebody approaches you out of nowhere and tries to give you a free gift. It's never a free gift. This could be anything from a bracelet, like I mentioned, like a little trinket, or sometimes people will have, oh, you dropped like this gold ring or something. This makes no sense to me, because if you say to me, oh, you dropped this ring, I know I never had a ring like this, so why would I give you money? But for some reason, these people believe that they can talk you out of your money. So just be very cautious. If somebody approaches you out of nowhere, having this very inquisitive mind about where you're from, what you do, why you're there, for no reason whatsoever, be always very suspicious. Because why would they come to you, start asking all these questions? You are just a person minding your own business, and all of a sudden, they decide that they need to know more. And this is a way for you to put your guard down, to be less cautious. Remember, sometimes these people work in groups. While someone is there distracting you, trying to get you to lower your guard, someone else might be around trying to steal your wallet. So again, keep an eye on your belongings, no matter who you're interacting with. Just because this person's talking to you doesn't mean that there's someone else that's beside you or around you, and they are taking advantage of you being distracted. So just be careful with that, because it's very common, especially in Rome. Once you know what to look for, you can spot these people coming from a mile away and just say, no, thank you, keep walking, do not engage, and they will leave you alone. It's not worth for them to get into huge disagreements. It's not worth their time. They'll just move on to someone else. But if you stop and you participate, you're just perpetuating the scam and also exposing yourself to also be pickpocketed. So not only are they taking your money for this supposed gift, they're also taking your wallet. So I would say really be careful with that. Now, another scam that's very popular and might seem innocent enough is fake petitions or charity solicitations. So I don't know about you, but in Canada, we often have people from different charities. They do different drives, whether it's for, animal shelters or for some kind of children organization. And those are legit companies. They'll come to you and say, hey, do you want to donate money? They usually have a stand. Or let's say there's election time, you have different affiliations, during Christmas or whatever. So my point is, it's not uncommon to see those in your own country. So when you come to Italy, you might think, oh, okay, this is just another legit petition. I would say be careful, because these are not always the way you think they are. So you might be walking around, let's say you are in Milan or some piazza, and you're walking around and this person approaches you. They'll usually have a clipboard and be very friendly, and they'll talk to you and give you the story or whatever the petition is for, in hopes of getting your trust and making you feel like you have to participate. So they might, try to give you to sign this petition, which is one thing. I would say don't sign anything. Then comes why don't you donate some money? So If it's a petition, why are you giving money? This is a very complicated issue because for me personally, if I go to a different country and it's a political party, I can't vote in that country. So usually you tell them I'm not from here, they'll leave you alone because that you're not good to them, right? You're not the target demographic. So why would a person in a different country approach you specifically as a tourist and ask you to sign a petition for something that you have no influence over, or try to ask you for money where you have to understand, where is this money going to? Who am I supporting? Because I don't live in that community. So that doesn't make any sense. I would say be careful of those people because they will ask you for money. They just don't care about signing the petition. And this is unfortunate because sometimes there are legit charities and causes, and it's a bit hard to distinguish between the legit one and the one that's fake. If someone just comes up to you with a clipboard and they want money, usually cash, I'd be very suspicious. I always try to ignore these people. I just keep on walking. I don't engage. And they're not going to chase you. They'll leave you alone. If somebody starts talking to you, just walk away, especially if they approach you and they start talking to you in Italian, then switch to English right away. You are being targeted because you are a tourist. Because if they are a local charity, they'll be speaking to you in Italian. If you don't respond and they start speaking in English, that's a red flag. So I would also watch out for those. And you also want to make sure that you are not engaging with them, because once you start talking to them, engaging in a conversation, it's another opportunity for someone else to come along, take advantage of while you're being distracted and pickpocket you. So I think this is what it comes down to with everything is watch out for people trying to steal your wallet and your money while you're being distracted. So no matter what scam you are encountering, pickpocketing is something that it always comes down to. Now, another scam that's been on the rise, and this is one that TikTok I saw talked about, is fake police officers. So in Italy, I don't know where you live, but in Canada, police cannot just stop you and ask you for your ID for no reason. If I'm walking down the street and a police pulls over and says, "Can I see your ID?" you could just say no. In Italy, it's different. Police is allowed to stop you and check your ID. They will never ask you for your banking information. So these scams are around people pretending to be police officers because you're more likely to respond to someone with authority. They'll come up to you and say, we need to inspect your bags because we are investigating counterfeit currency or some fraudulent activity. They won't really give you an explanation how checking your bag does that, but they will try to get into your bag. Sometimes what they do is they'll ask for your wallet or your bank card, your Visa card, whatever, and then sometimes they'll just run off with it, or sometimes they'll just make a copy of it. And it's never a good idea to do that. The legit police officer will ask you for your ID, either your passport or an ID card. They will never ask you for your information. Now, in Italy, they have, I'm not sure what the actual name of them is, but they do have these representative of the tax people. So basically, if you are in a shop, in Italy, you have to get a receipt. Sometimes they might stop you and say, "I need to see your receipt for whatever you've purchased." In this case, you show them your receipt. They don't need to see your credit card, bank information, or your wallet. You have to show proof that you paid for your items. That's different. So again, there are different distinctions. And if you don't know what the rules are, this one is very easy to fall for because, again, they look like they are the authority and they're asking you to do something. And again, you are in a foreign country. You don't want to get arrested, so you comply. And that's what they're really banking on. So I would say how to avoid this scam. When you get stopped, and again, I got stopped at the train station in Rome before. I think I also got stopped in Naples once. These guys were driving around on like a golf cart. They were stopping everyone. So it wasn't just like they singled you out. They were stopping everybody, checking their ID, moving on. If you are feeling specifically targeted, then that might be a scam. They ask to see your bags or they want to see your wallet or your cards. That's also a flag. If you're approached and if you're not sure and you are suspicious, you can ask them to see their ID, you see their information, or offer to go to the police station and resolve the issue there. If they're fake officers, they're not going to do that. So that's one way to spot that it's a scam. Real police officers will never ask you for your banking information. I want to specify that because a lot of people might not know that, and it depends on where you're coming from. Maybe in your country they can. In Italy, they wouldn't ask you for that. They'll ask you for your ID, not your banking information. This is something that I've heard is becoming more common. It's probably going to be more common in big touristy cities. So you have to make sure that you keep an eye on that. Sometimes they're in pairs and that's done on purpose. One person checks your stuff, distracts you. They can make a copy of your information, steal money before you even know what's happening. So be extra cautious with that. Unfortunately, that's a hard one because you do want to comply. You don't want to be arrested. But like I said, if it's not feeling quite right or they're asking you for the wrong things, offer to go to the police station and settle it. And that will usually deter them. Now, one of the most common things that you see people complain about Italy and traveling to Italy is tourists who are overcharged at restaurants. So you've heard stories of people who had I had 2 cappuccinos and a burger or something like that, and my bill came to hundreds of euros. So in this situation is also, again, not very pleasant. Can you avoid it? Yes. This happens everywhere. This isn't just Italy. If you go to touristy places, people will try to take advantage of you, especially if you go to countries where economy might not be so good. There might not be too many rules. The locals will try to take advantage of you. How to avoid that? Whenever you go to a touristy place, try to avoid eating in a touristy place. If a bar or a restaurant right next to the major landmark appeals to you and you want to spend your money there, you can go for it, but A, you'll be paying a lot more money, and B, you might want to make sure that they're a real restaurant. So what I mean by real restaurant, restaurants have to have a menu, right? They have to have a menu where you can see the prices. If there are no prices or there's just pictures and the waiters try to recommend dishes to you that you don't know how much they are, that's a red flag. I would never go and sit down on a restaurant where they don't have the menu prices. That's, to me, is the number one flag because they can charge you whatever they want and you can't go back and say this is what it said on the menu because they don't have a price. So if you didn't ask, they can just say, well, you didn't ask. That's how much we charge for our drink or food or whatever it is. Now, there is a service charge that they charge you on all restaurants. It's called pane e coperto or servizio. So basically, it's like a service charge. So usually it's anywhere between a €1.50 to maybe €2-3. Depends on how, again, which part of the town you are in. They might charge you a bit more, but it's usually about €2 per person. You pay that no matter where you are. Now, if you are in a restaurant or a coffee shop, a bar, whatever, always be careful because sometimes those are the places that people have been complaining about. So if you ask for the menu, there's no prices, that's a flag. If they try to upsell you without telling you how much the dinner is or how much the dish is, that's a flag. If they are very willing to just lure you into the restaurant, it's also a flag. A restaurant that is catering to locals, that runs good business, they will never try to. Unfortunately, when you are in very touristy areas, you see all of these people standing outside trying to get you in. It's not to say that always is a tourist trap, but they are targeting tourists because they want you to come in and spend money there. Be extra careful. With this one, it's tricky because sometimes they might not have a menu with pictures. They might not have something else. So just be careful. If you're not sure before ordering, just ask to see the menu. See how much it is. And if they're very aggressive, they don't want to show you the menu, I would say go somewhere else. It's really not worth your time. If you find yourself in a situation when you're getting ripped off, and you feel unsafe or you feel like they're not going to let you leave without paying this huge amount, just refuse to pay and offer to call the police. That will usually settle it, but be careful because sometimes people will take advantage of you as a tourist traveling. And this is not just in Italy. This happens in many other places, but it seems to happen every now and then that somebody comes to Italy and gets overcharged. So I would say be careful and also look at reviews online. People sometimes will say, I got ripped off here, I didn't. So this one is a bit more nuanced, and I would say avoid sitting in very touristy places next to landmarks because those will be more expensive to begin with. Now, speaking of overpayments and being overcharged, another one is taxi cabs. This is not common just to Italy. I think taxi cabs everywhere have this reputation that they're more likely to scam you. So now in Italy, they have licensed cabs, and these ones, you can flag them when you're walking down the street. You can't flag a cab here. You have to go to a designated station where they line up, or you wait for them to come. If somebody tries to pull over and pick you up, or just being like, oh, I don't have my meter on, or my meter's not working, that's a flag. Taxi drivers are notorious for scamming tourists, and they can sometimes drive you around on a longer route just to give that meter higher, so you have to pay more. And this one's a bit tricky because you don't want to be left by them somewhere in like a dangerous area, or it might seem like a dangerous area because you don't know where you are, you don't speak the language. So I would say be very careful with getting into cabs. And even if you're at the airport or train station, there usually is a designated spot where everybody lines up and cabs pull up. When a cab pulls up, the person gets in. Then you move up the line and the next one comes in. Those are usually legit, and you'll be able to spot them because they are at those specific stops. Always use official taxis. They'll have a license number. In Italy, you can also use apps. There's Free Now or IT Taxi, and you can book rides with that. As far as Uber goes, it's not as common in Italy. For example, when I was in Milan, they had Uber there. When I was in Rome, they don't always have access to Uber, so you can't just rely on those things. So I would say, again, be very careful, or opt for public transit or book your own car service from the airport to your hotel, or from a hotel to the airport. Okay, so another tourist scam that's very popular in tourist destinations is the fake tickets or fake tours. Italy has a lot of attractions. There's lots of things to see, lots of things to do. If you come to a place like Rome, for example, it's very difficult, especially during high season, to get tickets to places. Like, you can't just show up and get tickets. You always have to book them ahead of time. So, for example, you get to the Vatican or the Colosseum, and there's all kinds of people there. If you're just walking around, you'll have people who come up to you and say, hey, do you want to see the Colosseum? Do you want to see this? I have tickets. Do you want to get tickets? You want to get a tour? Are they legit? I would say be careful, because in Italy, you have to be a registered tour guide. So I don't think a tour guide would just show up to a busy location and hope to get people to book with them. These days, they have online bookings. They wouldn't show up and just hope for a group. They will show up when there's a group booked. That also is a good indication that this might not be legit. If someone just approaches you and says, hey, I can get you a ticket to this attraction, which is sold out, or there's no tickets for today, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, sure. So what happens in this case, they will give you the ticket, for example, or they'll take your money, say, hold on, I'm just going to get us in, and they just disappear. Or the tickets they gave you are fake. So you go to the entrance and they'll tell you, sorry, this ticket's not valid because it's not a real ticket. So now you're out of your money and can't see the attraction, which can be very disappointing. I would say never get tickets to attractions or book any tours while you're just standing outside the destination. Sometimes you can go in and get a ticket at the spot from the museum or from the attraction you're in. Those are legit. People trying to scam you and sell you tickets outside, I would say be careful of those. If you're booking tours online, this might be a bit tricky because they get very sophisticated. Whenever you're booking a tour, make sure that they are a legit company. Make sure you check reviews. Make sure you look into that, because sometimes they can create a website, all this information about these tours, and you pay ahead, and when you show up, the tour is not there. So there's no one there. The tour is not happening. Maybe you'll have the tour that you think takes you to a different town. For example, if you're going from Rome on a day trip to Pompeii, you want to make sure that your entrance is included, right? You pay for this tour. It takes you from Rome to Pompeii. You go on a guided tour and it brings you back. Be careful, because if you just pay for the transportation there and you get left at Pompeii with no ticket, you still have to get your own ticket, and then you have no way back. So you're stuck. I would say just make sure you review the tours, look at the reviews before you book, and that way you'll be less likely to get ripped off. Another scam that's very popular, especially in Florence, is called the oil print scam. It's a bit elaborate, and once you know how to spot it, you'll be able to avoid it. So in this situation, you'll have, someone who might seem like an artist or some kind of artisan, and they have their artworks conveniently laid out on the ground. So they usually try to put themselves in very touristy locations where there's a lot of foot traffic, when there's a lot of tourists who are getting distracted. So the way this works is that, let's say I am this fake artist and I have all these artworks that are laid out on the floor, and you're walking by, and let's say you're not paying attention. Somehow you might trip over it or you accidentally step on one. Well, that's when the scam begins. The moment you were near them and you step on it or damage it, they'll accuse you of damaging their work. And of course, for that, they'll expect you to compensate them. So they'll ask you for huge money to pay for this. And some of these things, they're not even real art. They were created for that purpose. You always have to be careful when you're walking in these touristy areas. It's better to avoid them. If it happens to you and you accidentally step on something and they become very aggressive and demanding, again, you can just walk away. Walk away. They're not going to follow you around. They'll just try to cause a scene and embarrass you and force you into giving them money. Don't do it, because that's a scam. So again, how to avoid this? Well, the most obvious is watch where you're walking, especially in crowded areas. If you are confronted, remain calm, apologize, and walk away. Don't get caught up in a fight, because again, going back to the people trying to steal your money, you might be getting purposely involved in a confrontation that has been initiated by them, just so you have someone else trying to come by, and while you're not paying attention, steal your money, steal your wallet, grab something out of your bag. So I would say be careful with that. This is a very common one in Florence, and it's been something that a lot of people on TikTok talk about. The last time I was in Florence, I don't remember seeing that, but it was also rainy. So they wouldn't be putting their so-called art on the sidewalk when it's raining. That maybe was the reason why we didn't see them. But if you do see them, just stay clear and you should be fine. Another scam that's making waves is fake mimes and the pay-per-move scams. There are two different scams and they kind of operate the same way. So again, you might see them in very touristy places. Let's talk about the fake mimes. It's exactly what it sounds like. They'll be these street artists, buskers, whatever, they're dressed like mimes. So they'll try to approach crowds, especially just kids, because kids like this kind of stuff. They'll try to distract you and interact with you. Again, they work in teams. So one person is trying to distract you. The other one might be trying to steal your money. So always make sure you keep your eye on your belongings and don't get involved with those kind of interactions. Now, the pay-per-move scam is a bit more of a bait and switch. This, unfortunately, started as a legit thing. So sometimes you might be in a restaurant and somebody will come in and they'll give you like a little card. Oh, I am hearing impaired, or, something I can't see. And they'll leave you this card. Like they'll walk around the restaurant and leave these cards everywhere. So they'll come back after and collect them, hoping that you'll give them some money. A lot of times people don't give them any money. They'll reach out and try to grab the paper. Again, these people are very skilled at that. They will try to either grab other things. If you have something valuable on the table, like your phone, for example, they might grab that. So you won't even notice it until they're gone. You'll be like, where's my phone? And guess what? They just took it. Always be careful. Unfortunately, this happens. If you have these people coming to restaurants, it's also on their restaurant sometimes to take them to leave. It's hard to differentiate this person's legit or not. And like I said, this was originally to help people who are hearing impaired communicate, but it's been taken advantage. It's very difficult to differentiate which is real and which isn't. I would always say if you have somebody like that coming by and you don't want to give them any money, just make sure you have all your belongings inside, where everything is, in case they come back and try to hang around, where your stuff is, and they'll likely move on. This one's a bit strange, but it's also been happening, so just be careful. So the last one I'm going to talk about is something that happens in not just Italy, but in a lot of different touristy areas, called the fake holiday home scam. So, you look at something online, you want to book, but it could be a villa or like a seaside apartment that looks really nice and relaxing. A lot of times it looks like something out of a movie and you're like, oh, wow, I want to stay there. So what happens is you go ahead and you book it and they'll come back to you and say, hey, can you put a deposit or even a full payment in advance to secure the booking? So now this happens if you go through booking.com or Airbnb, you do sometimes pay ahead of time, but it's done through the app. The way this scam works and the way you know it's a scam is that they will often tell you to switch from booking, or let's switch this from Airbnb, let's talk on WhatsApp. The moment you do that, you're off the platform, and that's when they can say, oh, here, if you give us a deposit or send us the money, whatever. So you might think, okay, that's fine. You'll send them the money and you then show up and either the place is not there, or it could be someone's home that, someone else was pretending to be renting out. And you're going to show up, you're going to have no money and no place to stay because somebody just scammed you. So I would say in this case, it's always easier to book on legitimate sites. Like I said, bookings or even Airbnb. The transactions are done through the app. You never give the money directly to the person you're renting from. This is done to, again, prevent these kind of, fake exchanges and make sure that your money is secure. So if this happens to you and someone says, hey, let's, switch to WhatsApp or email, be very suspicious. So when we were in Sicily last year, we had booked through Airbnb or something like that. We did get a message from the owner later. It wasn't about payment though. It was about just like making sure that how do we get there, if we had any questions or if we needed to send them ID documents. That's fine. That's a bit of a different situation. This, I would say, is more of a flag if it happens when you're trying to book or if you just book and they're asking you to make a payment through other platform than what you book through. That's definitely a flag, and you should even report the listing to Airbnb or whatever you're booking through. If they ask you to pay through a different way, that's a flag. So just avoid it. Don't do it. Otherwise, you may end up disappointed. So those were the most common scams that happen in Italy to tourists. I don't think any of them are solely Italy-centric. Like I said, I think these happened all over the place. Also, be careful of anybody who's trying to be overly friendly, trying to get you to go to like, oh, I can recommend this bar or restaurant, especially if you are a single male or female and you have these people who are overly friendly. Also be careful because sometimes they'll take you to this place they recommend and then the bill comes and it's really high and you have to pay. So I would say always be careful with that. I haven't really thought about that being very common in Italy, but it's not to say it doesn't happen. Be vigilant. When you're coming to Italy, you want to have a good experience. Nobody wants to be robbed or scammed. I think understanding what these scams look like is a good way to avoid being scammed. If you are able to spot them or anticipate, you'll be in a better position to avoid putting yourself in that situation. Staying vigilant, knowing what to look for will always be helpful in spotting these. Now, if you do end up being scammed or somebody steals your wallet or camera or something, it's easy to get upset, but don't feel mad at yourself because these people are very professional. This is what they do. It's not their first attempt, so to speak. They're very good at what they do. And they have different tricks and different, shticks that they work on to get you distracted, to make you feel like you are engaged in something that is just a distraction. So just be careful because it's nothing to say that it's your fault. It's just the person is very good at what they do. If you get scammed, don't be afraid to tell other people because That's what keeps everybody else from knowing what happens. If something like this happened to you, if there's any other scam that happened to you and people going to that area might not be aware of, it's also good to share with them because that will help them avoid the same scam. I don't have an answer why these scams are not being more cracked down on. I think as much as the authorities can try to crack down on it, there's always going to be another way that the scammers will come up with something else. And eventually it just becomes, like another reinvented trick. So this time it's a mime, next time it's something else. And the idea is always the same. With something like pickpocketing or somebody running by and stealing your things, especially in busy places, it's very difficult to find them. Even if you say, this person stole my wallet, it's very difficult if they just run off and you don't even know what they look like for the police to catch them. Now, if you do have something of significant value that was stolen and you need to report it to your insurance or try to get compensation, you do need a police report. So you have to go to the police station and file a report. That way you'll be able to at least claim it back. If you get your wallet stolen, should you report it? That's really up to you. I think reporting it is a good way of keeping track of things. I don't necessarily think he was going to give you much of a solution because the police are not going to be able to find your wallet unless somebody finds it discarded and, returns at the police station. But at least you've made a report. So I think that's up to you. I definitely think you should block everything if you get your wallet stolen, as in particular. If it's a camera, it's harder, but if it's insured and you can get money back, always file a police report. I don't want you to think that coming to Italy is going to be just this minefield of scammers because that happens everywhere. Italy is very safe. I travel alone all the time and it's just about being vigilant, right? If you look like a tourist, if you're sitting there looking everywhere around you, not paying attention, you're a mark. Try to avoid being a mark. That's the easiest advice I can give you. Be very vigilant, be aware, and you'll be able to avoid getting scammed. I hope your trip to Italy is uneventful and you get to see the sights and enjoy your trip. And don't forget to share this with other people so they don't get scammed. I will see you guys in the next one.